Hi there, it's Tricia again. I'm checking back in to talk a little bit more about what it feels like to be a highly sensitive or autistic person out in the world. I started off this Empath Life series with a video titled The Intimacy Problem for Sensitives, and it's received quite a few views. The link to watch it is below this video if you want to watch it first before diving into this topic. But what it did for me was inspired me to think about what else is in the detail of this topic. And I got up one morning this week after recording the first clip and felt that there was some guidance coming through. So I wrote down what I'm calling the top 5 barriers to connection for sensitives. And I'm going to talk through them one at a time. I would love you to take time to sit and listen and take in the information that I'm sharing. It might be all new concepts for you. It might ring true. It might feel challenging because it rings true. And it's really just this opportunity that you're having to reflect on how you can relate to being emotionally sensitive, having sensory sensitivities, being somebody perhaps with really high empathy and spiritual gifts. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome to this little community, and I just hope that I can offer some content that makes you feel seen and understood, and perhaps gives you some food for thought with how you want to be living in relationships with others, how you could afford to stretch yourself maybe and push against some growth edges with how you trust yourself to be discerning and with who you connect with, and that you learn over time that there are certain people in your world that you could perhaps trust a little bit more and give a little bit more of yourself to. The most fulfillment we can get from a relationship is when we get to be 100% ourselves in the relationship. So that might be a goal that you want to set for yourself, that you start looking around and noticing, who are the people that I can relax around? Who are the people that I just know that if I'm showing up authentically, that they're going to enjoy me, that I'm not going to be made to feel uncomfortable in their presence. So let's dive in. I want to start with number 1. One of the first barriers that is something that and all of this I've experienced, so it's coming from personal experience, it's coming from my experience as a therapist, a counsellor, an intuitive, a channel, and a lot of what comes through in these sharings is channel guidance sort of contributing to the way that I speak. So enjoy. Number 1. We can get really hooked in as sensitive humans with playing a role as the capable one. So if you haven't watched video 1, that's okay. I'm just going to give you a quick recap. If you have, you'll know exactly where I'm coming from with this. Being the capable one is something that a role that we may have picked up in childhood, because to be the child that was no fuss, quite responsible, quite sensible, didn't get into a lot of trouble, didn't create dramas in the home, that trained us to be out in the world with our friends, at school, in workplaces in the future, to be someone who knows how to hold it together. We also, as part of that, we learn how to contain emotion and make ourselves reasonably emotionally self-sufficient, because that also allowed us to appear capable and therefore no trouble. The problematic part of this that emerges as we mature into adulthood is that we can end up choosing relationships where we get to be a helper, we get to be a saviour for somebody else, we get to be the more mature, capable, wise person in each connection that we have. And it's a comforting feeling where we know that we can, I guess, have some sense of control then in that relationship, because we can label the other person as not as capable, a bit disorganized, a bit chaotic, a bit lacking in confidence. The list goes on with what we might label them as. And the problem also, so the problem is we end up with this imbalance of this perception of imbalance, which may not be accurate. We may actually not be the more capable one. We just think we are. And secondly, it creates a barrier to true connection. So if we're not viewing these humans we're friends with or partners with or work colleagues with as an equal, that perceived imbalance of power dynamic can get in the way of authentic connection. Authentic connection is when I feel like I can just, it's like we do still have a social contract where we're not just going to 100% tell it, have no filter. But authentic connection is I get to bring my whole self. So I get to bring the fact that today I'm feeling tired or anxious or worried or nervous about a particular thing that I'm doing or lacking in skill, knowledge. I get to bring that into my close relationships, knowing that I'm not going to be rejected or judged or disapproved of because I'm not the most capable person in that moment. I hope this is making sense. So when we're able to drop the need to play the role of being the more capable person, it can feel really scary because, who are we if we're not the most capable one? But it can feel really rewarding over time because we then are not holding that tension of having to be capable, of having to know things, of having to get things right, and also having to almost have an internal mental tally of being perhaps better in our mind, knowing something the other person didn't know, or feeling like a helpful presence rather than just being a friend, rather than just being a companion to our person that we're connecting with. Let's move on to number 2. So the other trait that we might have developed as children is deeply feeling that we're responsible for other people's feelings and working really hard to try to control or manage how other people are responding to us, how they're responding to life, and how their mood is in the day. So we may have had somebody in the family who had more of a volatile set of emotions. We may have had somebody with no expressed emotions. It could come from any type of environment that we've experienced. It could have come from being confronted with anger and violence. It could have come from anywhere. But essentially what little kids do is they create this mental theory that if only they could control the situation better, they wouldn't have to go through feeling confronted by the adult person's feelings. And so there is this taking on of responsibility that's very buried and internal. It's not even something that we necessarily consciously understand. But nonetheless, when somebody's upset, we often have this instinctive response to think to ourselves, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? What did I not do or do that's created this? Because we've had the mistake and we've cultivated this mistaken belief that if something's amiss, then we might be holding some blame or responsibility for it. So how this plays out in adulthood is that we're over-attuned, we're over-vigilant, we're hyper-vigilant to other people's moods. This is most relevant in people that we live with, so housemates, good friends that we might live with, partners we live with, parents that we still might be living with. It can happen with close work colleagues as well, definitely, or bosses, but it's going to be at its most heightened and problematic in our closest relationships. So if we narrow that right down, it's often going to be the partner relationship that this is most problematic. So we're not even going to know that we're doing it some of the time. We're going to be feeling anxious, worried, annoyed even at what our partner might be feeling and expressing, without understanding that we get to have a boundary between us and them, and we actually aren't responsible for their feelings. And because of how sensitive we are, we're even less likely to be responsible because we're very careful about how we present ourselves, our own feelings. We are reluctant to overburden other people as a general rule, and we are very unlikely to be unfiltered or confrontational in relationships, because the last thing we want to have to experience is another person's strong emotion in our midst. We just don't want it. So the reality check is asking ourselves directly, am I actually responsible for this person's feelings in this moment? I would say 99.9% of the time, you are not. And it's a new learned behavior to coach ourselves and say, I'm not ever responsible for somebody else's emotions unless I've deliberately done something or, there's been a mistake or an accident and they're blaming me. That's sometimes out of our control. But to pull back, create some distance mentally, and almost visually have a little curtain that drops down, or a wall of water or something sweet like that. Some light arrives in front of us that we can visualize that says, I'm separate from that person. I'm not them. My high empathy is being triggered right now, and I'm imagining how they're feeling. I might be jumping into it with them and wanting them to not feel this. But the growth point is being able to hold space, say, oh, they're feeling that thing, that's hard, and provide support and care, compassion, without actually feeling responsible. Beautiful. Let's keep moving. Number 3 on the list is we have an intense fear of disapproval and rejection because of all the reasons I've already listed. So we don't have to go into it every single time with each point. But when you have an embedded fear of disapproval and rejection because of your high sensitivity, your high empathy, your alertness to stimuli, a lot of us just want to be invisible, which is a really good signal for being fearful of disapproval, because negative feedback can be almost as painful as positive feedback for some small children who are highly sensitive or autistic, or both. But as we mature, it can move more towards, we can get used to being praised. We can tap in usually to the good feeling that comes from being praised and acknowledged for positive things, but we can become more and more convinced as we mature that it is impossible or really, really threatening to us to go through any kind of disapproval. That's partly because we've had very little practice at it, because we just anchor ourselves in this role of being good and being no trouble. So we've had very little practice at recovering from disapproval. And of course, kids still get in trouble. I got in trouble heaps. I wasn't perfect, but I was trying really hard to be because the pain of that gaze from the adult that we rely on to be disappointed in us is really painful for a sensitive child. But we may not get in trouble as much as the average kid because we are not willing to take the risk of that. So we're going to be more careful with our choices, our actions. We don't want to put ourselves in that position. So having no resilience for disapproval or rejection just heightens the fear of it as we mature. And then it can lead to behaviours like people pleasing, being a bit of a doormat, letting people walk over you, over-giving, jumping in really quickly to offer help, to offer your services to people, even money, even objects that you like, giving them away. There can be a lot of really troubling and upsetting to us in the long-term ways that we can try to avoid disapproval and rejection. It can also be ending up with friends where we have to really mask very highly to stay in that friendship group, because particularly as teenage girls and boys as well, but more specifically the girls are going to be picking up on that better than the boys at this age, that you have to look the part, act the part, sound the part when you're in a particular group of friends as a teenager. And for those of us that are highly sensitive and maybe autistic, that's a lot of extra work for us. It's very burdensome because we often don't actually fit in those groups. So there's a level of negotiating internally, of modeling from other people, of playing a role, of mimicking, and that's exhausting. It's really exhausting. Plus, running behind that is the anxiety of being found out that we're kind of like an imposter, that we don't fit, because we genuinely don't feel that we fit. We're just pretending that we fit and hoping that it passes muster. So so that fear of disapproval is something we can work on as adults, where we can take some small risks with the people closest to us in not being amenable, not being as agreeable, not being as accommodating, learning how to say no, learning how to put up healthy boundaries when we can't do something, when we don't want to do something, saying that that's not going to work for me, I can't do it that day, or I've got too much on, or even being more honest, I really need some time down, some downtime. I'm really overstimulated. I'm really tired. I've had too much going on recently. So really even divulging how we need to meet our own needs in life, rather than always meeting other people's needs to keep that sort of even keel for our nervous system. Okay, I'm watching the time. Number 4, unrealistic standards of what relationships are meant to feel and look like, and perfectionism. So again, it's similar to what I've already explained, but perfectionism has its own category, because it's very connected to the feeling of being capable and getting things right, and fearing getting things wrong. But having an unrealistic idea about relationships is specifically a very autistic trait. We can get very hooked into what we've seen in television and movies and read in books. We can hold fantasy ideas of what we see in other people's relationships and fail to understand the depth of the relationship behind closed doors that we don't see. So social media has a particularly big role to play with this, and I have experienced this myself. I see somebody being really loving in a social media post at an anniversary or their partner's birthday, and my autistic brain says that is the truth, the whole truth. It's my literal thinking. That is the whole truth of their relationship. They are so in love. They are just a match made in heaven. There is nothing ever wrong in their relationship. They are only ever adoring, affectionate, and caring towards one another. I really have to work hard at debating that and challenging that in myself to bring it back to a more realistic truth, which is that all relationships have their ups and downs, their challenges, their tricky spots, and everybody annoys somebody at some point. And if they say that they don't, I don't think that they're telling the truth. So I think my work as a psychologist and counsellor over the years has really helped to flesh that out for me and give me plenty of evidence that what you see on the outside or in public is often not the whole story. And of course we want others to be happy, but the truth is everyone's happy some of the time, and not many people are happy 100% of the time in their relationships. So that's part of that unrealistic stance that we can hold, which means we can be too rigid particularly in romantic relationships when things aren't working. We can have too rigid a set of criteria for what love is, what commitment is, what respect is, and what's safe for us. And we can end up ditching relationships before we need to, because maybe the work could have been done where we could have opened up a bit and expressed how we felt. Maybe that partner would have been willing to change, grow, develop, listen to us, take on board what we were saying. And, this is all keeping in consideration nobody should be in an abusive relationship, and autistic people actually on the other end of this spectrum can have trouble understanding what abuse is as well. So we can have it bad in both directions. We can find that we will become reliant and dependent on a partner very quickly as well, where there can be some dysfunctional behaviour happening, and it can actually tip into abuse or coercive control. That autistic and highly sensitive people are more vulnerable than the neurotypical humans in those scenarios. But at the other end, we can end up closing ourselves off to really potentially loving relationships, because we have these very unrealistic concepts of what love and commitment and long-term partnership should look like. And that perfectionistic nature we have where, you know, I'm not settling for less, or I deserve better than that. We can also hold an illusion of superiority with some of our the neurotype that we possess. We can hold this belief that is quite ungrounded around being better than others. So it's so complex. There's so much going on. I could keep talking for a lot longer, but I won't. I want to keep this not too much longer than the previous one, which was 23 minutes. So let's keep it on track. So finally, number 5, having a belief in the benefits of self-sufficiency over reliance on others. This sort of takes us back to number 1, where we wanted to be playing the role of the capable one, but it's just a little bit more nuanced than what I originally shared. So let's finish on this one. Because relationships are demanding for us, they feel sometimes like a real burden. Sorry, playing around with my hair. One of our fantasies can end up being, while we're in relationships, in families, in friendship groups, it can be like the feeling of, oh, it would just be easier to be on my own and live as a hermit and not have to deal with any of this complexity. I would feel much happier with the simplicity of being emotionally self-sufficient, and that it's really hard work relying on others and having them rely on us. It's a lot of stimulation. It can feel overwhelming. With all of the other things that I've already spoken about, it can feel literally like we're holding everybody up. And as we finish, I just want to share something which might help to give you a visual concept of what this looks like for me. I've realised in recent years that on my bedside table, unlike some people, I don't have a photo of my children or my husband. I have a photo of a flower. On my phone, I'll just show you, I don't have a photo of my children or my partner. I have a photo of a beautiful eucalypt macrocarpa, just about to pop its little pixie cap off. I'll show you that again because it's so adorable. Beautiful pink blossom about to spring out from that cap. Other people, apparently, they have photos of their kids, their family. They've got photos on their desk. I've graduated now to having a photo of my husband on a little table over there in my office from our holiday in Spain last year. That was a big step for me. Having photos of my loved ones around, actually, I've realised, is a sense of more burden, because my brain's full of them anyway, and I kind of need a break. So it's a really interesting thing that I've noticed, that I don't desire reminders of the people. I don't need them. I don't need the reminders. They're with me, in me, around me, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, all the time, anywhere. And what I'm wanting to move into is that I have enough separation in a healthy way from those humans, that I do want to be able to look at a nice photo with a beautiful memory attached to it. I do want to feel that sense of affection when I look at a photo of a loved one and not feel burdened. So I'm going to close on that point. If you have questions, if you have comments, please feel free to put them below. I'm going to keep expanding on this topic because it feels like something that's come alive for a few people who've seen the original video. And I am available for one-on-one appointments. You can go to my website and then make a booking through the link. I also have a women's monthly meditation and personal growth work group called Embody to Rise, where we do meditation and embodiment work and we learn on particular topics. I also have passions for astrology and human design, so they get slotted in there as well. But yeah, if you'd like to spend some monthly time with me at the cost of 33 Australian dollars a month, then you're welcome to join that group as well. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I look forward to having some more time with you in the future.